Hello, everyone. Welcome back, and it's great to see you again. So today we moving on to a new topic on the framework. It's called To Do. I believe most of you have heard of it or used it or configured To Do's in your system. So what I want to discuss is more around how we can use to do effectively and what is the use cases in our implementation. Okay, break it down to four different topics. Do overview at the beginning. Then we'll look at the life cycle of to do. Um, After that, we'll look at the use cases, business rules, etc. on the to do, how we can use that in the implementation. And also we will look at entity relationship to wrap it up. Okay, so part one, to do overview. Okay, so to do, there are a few concepts I have to introduce that if you haven't heard about this term before. So to do is something we use in the system to notify the business user um, when some event happens or we need them to perform a menu task. Okay, so we have to remember this is a notification for menu task in most of the cases. In that case, we need to be understanding who we send it to, what type of information is required for the user to understand the event, and also what is the logics behind it or any governing rules behind the to-do raised in the system. I break it down to to-do types, to-do roles, business rules, and reporting. So first of all, if you look at the to-do, it's actually defined by the to-do type. And on to-do type, we can define all sort of informations, which we will expand that later. But the main thing is around drill key, sort key, message, priority, um, and also the to-do role actually define who the to-do get assigned to uh, once the to-do is raised. Business rules is more around different behaviors this to-do should be behaving, and for example, it's defining the post-processing algorithm for validations or routing, etc. Um, and the last thing is the reporting part. Where can we see the to-do? Because to-do actually means the user receiving it should be acting on it based on defined SLA, for example, especially for the agents. So can we see the to do together, both from a administration perspective, but also from user perspective? How do we manage these to do? Okay, so this is a breakdown of the to-do type. What you can define on a to-do and what they actually means for the system. So on the main tab, you can define the default priority. The priority is a number which you can define, which basically says if the priority is high, it shows to the user in first in the list, for example. The navigation option, which means when the to-do is raised, normally it shows an error message, and the error message is a link, and that is basically saying where the link actually is pointing to. Based on different to-do, you probably want to link it to different objects so the user can quickly navigate through the system to understand where the event happened or the problem to resolve. Creation process, this is an option algorithm, which basically you can add additional validations, pre-processing, populating additional information, for example. And there is a routing process, which means when the to-do is created, does it need to be routed to additional system? If you are using C2M as let's say a CRM system, you might want to route the message to a downstream, for example, field service system, etc. So this is something can be achieved here. And also the default message. What is the message, text, etc. Okay, and then second tab we look at the role, all the applicable role and also the default roles. And then we have sort key. Sort key actually lists the list of fields which you want to sort it by, and that will be shown on the summary and dashboard list. The drill key is where the object ID is populated, and that is linked to the navigation option we were looking at. So for example, if you want the to-do being raised on a particular object, so say service point, then your navigation option should point into service points, and your object ID should be the service point ID. Message override is more around what are the different message. For different message, you can define whether to suppress the to-do, and for different message, you can have different rules defined. Characteristics. So this is quite interesting area, because characteristic actually means additional information on to do, not just a link to the object, but also I want to show, for example, if as we just take an example, say drill key is pointing to a service point, I want to show the characteristic to the say person name, when the person gets created, or when the service point last device has been installed. All this kind of information, as long as it's characteristic you can define in the system, you can actually populate them here. So it gives you a very quick way of looking at related information. And then algorithm tab, which define all sort of customization possible for you, and we will look at this in details a bit later. Okay, so second, let's look at the life cycle of to-do. I'm not quite sure which version you're working on, but in the older version, we have a life cycle on the left. So this is the open, being worked on, and complete. Now on the right-hand side is the new model, which actually just come out in the framework 4.5.012. That's 2023 second release. So it actually introduced a few new states. I think this is more around managing the to-do, because on the left at the moment, it's quite hard for the management to trace what the to-do is being, what is the actual state on the to-do. So on the right hand side, just give a bit more flexibility. Say if the issue has been on hold, it will move to on hold. Then it can be seen in a better way for reporting and for governance. Okay, so let's look at this business rules, what we can define in the to-do type. I list down a few use cases. So first use case, refining a to-do entry detail at creation time. So as we said, we can add additional fields at, say, we want to populate additional characteristics values on the to-do. Now this can be used, and we can define a to-do pre-creation plugin on the algorithm, which link to additional characteristics. Now the second one is suppressed by to-do message. As we mentioned there on the message tab, we could specify which particular message we want to suppress the to-do in those in that configuration point. Suppress based on conditions. So if you have some dynamic condition, you want to write a logic, and that can be done on this to-do pre-creation plugin as well. So you can apply your filter for these conditions. Next, if you want to dynamically calculate the to-do priority, now we can have the default priority on the to-do type, but based on some values, maybe characteristics, you want to dynamically calculate the priority. That can be specified in this calculate priority plugin support on algorithm as well. External routing, as we were talking about the routing algorithm, external routing can be specified in this external routing plugin. Information plugin, which basically you can show the to-do in a particular way. So you know all the objects in the system, you are able to define what the information link look like. In the CCMB, we have, I think we normally do that on the maintenance objects, but in the latest, the new versions, especially MDM, most of them are done on the BO level. Over here, to do, you can do that on the algorithm, because to do don't have business objects in this case. The configuration is on the to do type. Now, next one, display related information of to do. Now, what you need to remember is here we want to have additional characteristics, but also we need to not only define the characteristics, but also to populate these values. This is similar to what we talked on the first point, refining the values, refining the details at creation time. But there are some cases which you want to customize the logic of to-do entry and then um, adding additional fields at runtime once it's being created. So that has to have a custom retrieval mechanism in Java. There is no plugin for that. Okay, last one, auto assign to special advisor based on to-do type. Yeah, so how do we assign a to-do after it's been created? And that is a question we are going to answer in a later slide because that is really important. And it can be done in the to-do post-processing plugin. We can add a logic there, but we talk about that in a bit more details in the next slide. Okay, so there are other areas. I did mention most of these earlier, but I just want to summarize it before we move on. To do summary, now you have in your system it must be multiple summary pages which you can find in the to do main menu to do area. You should be able to see that, and it probably requires security for you to see that if you're not able to see. The similar list view can also be seen on the dashboard, and also on dashboard you have the option to say assign to do to the next available person on the defined role. So these are the options for how you operate on to-do assignment and to-do management. Now, second one, to-do search. I believe most of you have seen it. So when you search for to-do, you can either go straight to to-do entry and type in the to-do ID. In that way, it's quick and easy if you know the ID. But if you want to search for to-do has been raised, then you need to go through this to-do search page, which is really powerful. And you can filter on, for example, like to-do type, characteristic values, user has been assigned, the date range when it's being raised, and the status code as well on the life cycle. Next, case versus to-do. So one question we always hearing is what is the difference between case and to-do? And obviously the main difference is case is something we can define life cycle. To-do has a defined life cycle, so you cannot change it. And I think this is the main issue, not say issue, this is the main differentiation between these two objects. When you want to, let's say a scenario where you want to trace the to-do, you want better defined life cycle, sometimes you might want to raise a case to trace these type of activities. For example, if you say I want to raise a notification, but I want to do external routing to my field service, and I want to capture the updates from the field service with different life cycles, then a case will be more suitable because you can actually transition between the status, and that can be easily tracked. But to do is a bit difficult to do. You can only do that on the to-do log, which is text-based and not that easy for reporting. Okay, next, skill-based assignment. So we talk about assignment, and in the system, you can define a role assigned to the user. You can define post-processing algorithm, and that's simply just assigned to the next available. There are different logic. There are different algorithms provided by the base. If you look at the algorithm in the system, I believe there is one called next assignment, a next available assignment. So it's just assigned to the person who is available. However, if you want to do skill-based assignment, that's also possible. And the system actually provides infrastructure for that. I'm not going to expand on this, but if you look at the feature config called activity queue management, you can define the skills over there, and you can utilize the skill-based assignment in your projects. So, for example, you can divide things into billing, payments, metering, etc. So in these cases, the you don't have to say define the roles for them, but that gives you another option just to assign the to-dos based on the skill of the user rather than the role of the user. Okay, the last one I want to talk about is purge. There is a base batch called to-do purge, and it's important to utilize this because to-do could be created in very high volume. As we talking metering earlier, the measurements, you could have the IMD loading into arrow and to-do being raised for user to look at it, and especially when you get into cases like half-hourly data, it could generate huge amounts of IMD. And it's a different story we need to discuss around how many to-do we should raise. Because I remember when I was in Oracle, we had a debate on to do or not to do. Not to do is a big topic. Don't raise to do just because you want to notify something to the user. You have to remember all the to-dos should be a user notification for menu action. So if you raise a to-do, you should expect the user to work on them. If you raise a to-do and the user is not working on them, then you should not raise to-do. For example, as I know in the VE rules, which we also talked about earlier in MDM, you can either choose to raise a to-do or you can raise a VE exception. VE exception is not to-do, which can be reported. Remember the priority, information, arrow, and to terminate. So it can be reported, but that doesn't mean user has to work on it. So VE exception is a more suitable notification to the user rather than to do. Okay, so part 4, just look at the entity diagram and last. If we look at the main entry entities, they are to-do entry, to-do type, and to-do roles. So to-do type is where we define the behaviors of the to-do entry. To-do entry is just the runtime entries being created and assigned to the user. So over here we can see both to-do type and to-do entry points to the to-do role because we need to understand uh, which user group we should send it to if you are using role-based assignment. And to-do entry is linked to to-do type. Every to-do entry has a to-do type to where it can understand, what the behavior should be. Okay, that's everything I want to talk about today. And thank you very much. See you next week.